Yeah, I signed for the loan using her name. She'll never know the difference. I was completely frozen inside the dressing room. I recognized my husband's voice coming from the other side of the flimsy wall. He was laughing, telling his girlfriend all about how he'd managed to fool me. I quickly grabbed my cell phone, turned on the voice recorder, and calmly walked out there to confront them. One single word from me, and his face went as white as a sheet of paper. Layla Vance was making her way through the shops at Willow Creek, walking slowly as if she were lost in a haze. It had been a terrible day at work. She'd spent the entire morning buried under a huge pile of paperwork, followed by 3 solid hours of dealing with customer complaints, and then during lunch, she discovered that the accounting department had completely messed up the numbers again. Her head was throbbing, her shoulders ached terribly, and all she wanted to do was go home, kick off her shoes and collapse on the couch. But on the way, she remembered that the trench coat she'd been wearing for the last 4 years was totally worn out. The sleeves were frayed at the edges, the lining had ripped along the seam, and the dark green color had faded into some kind of unrecognizable mess. I really need to buy a new one, Layla thought to herself, turning to head toward the mall entrance. She didn't usually enjoy shopping, especially on a Friday evening when the place was packed with exhausted people rushing around trying to get things done before closing time. But today, for some reason, she felt like she deserved a treat. Maybe it was some kind of premonition, or maybe it was just the sheer exhaustion from her monotonous life. Work, home, work, home. Marcus, her husband, had been acting distant and withdrawn these last few months. He came home late every night, gave short, one-word answers to her questions, and disappeared on the weekends, claiming he was either going on a fishing trip or having a guy's night out. Layla had always just assumed that it was due to stress. His job was really demanding, and Marcus had always been a quiet man anyway. The automatic doors slid open with a soft hissing sound. Inside it was warm and bright, and it smelled like coffee from the nearby cafe and fresh pastries. People hurried back and forth carrying shopping bags. Children ran between the displays, and soft music was playing somewhere in the background. Layla took her phone out of her purse and checked the time. It was 6:30. She figured she still had enough time to pick out a coat and get home by 8 o'clock. She rode the escalator up to the second floor where the clothing stores were located. She walked past the athletic wear, past the denim shop, and stopped in front of a boutique she'd noticed many times but had never actually gone into. In the window, a mannequin was wearing a gorgeous navy blue coat with a thin belt cinched at the waist. It looked expensive but still tasteful. Layla stepped inside. The air smelled pleasantly of new fabric and a light perfume. The displays sparkled under the soft lighting. Coats, jackets, and trench coats of every imaginable color and style were hanging on the racks. She paused in front of a sharp-looking black coat with a wide collar. "Good evening. Can I help you find something?" A young sales associate asked her, with a friendly smile on her face and her hair neatly tied back. "Good evening. I'd like to try on a coat. Something classic that I can wear every day." "Certainly. What size do you wear?" "A size 10. The sales associate nodded and disappeared into the racks of clothing. Layla walked along the display, looking at the different styles. "This one's too bright. This one has a fur collar. Not practical. And this brown one?" No, she didn't want brown. It reminded her too much of her old coat. "Here, take a look at these." The young woman came back holding 3 coats. "This is a classic navy model. Very elegant. This gray one has a belt. And here's a black one with an interesting cut. See how the shoulder line is slightly dropped? It looks very stylish." Layla took the navy one. The fabric felt nice to the touch. It was heavy but not bulky. The color was a deep, rich blue, the kind that wouldn't fade or get dull after only a couple of seasons. "The fitting rooms are right over there." The associate pointed to a row of stalls in the back of the store. "If you need a different size or want to see any other styles, just let me know." "Thank you." Layla walked toward the fitting rooms. 3 stalls stood side by side, separated by thick, muted beige curtains. The first one was occupied. She could hear a muffled woman's voice talking on a cell phone. Layla went into the second stall, hung the coat on the hook, and started taking off her jacket. Soft instrumental music was playing throughout the store. She slipped out of her jacket, hung it next to the coat, straightened her blouse, which had gotten a little wrinkled during the day, and then slipped the new coat over her shoulders. She buttoned it up. The material was soft and the coat fit her figure nicely. She looked at herself in the mirror. It looked good. The shoulders fit perfectly. The length was just right. She turned sideways trying to see the silhouette. Maybe it was a little loose at the waist. Or was that just how she felt after a long tiring day at work? Then she heard a man's voice, loud and satisfied, with a familiar cadence that she knew anywhere, coming from the next fitting room, the one where someone had been on the phone just moments before. "Stop it, baby. It's fine. I'm telling you she won't figure it out." Layla froze. The hand that was reaching to unbutton the coat stopped in midair. It was Marcus, her husband, right here in the next fitting room in a women's clothing store. Her heart pounded in her throat. Her pulse was roaring in her ears. Did she imagine it? No. She knew that voice too well. She had lived with him for 8 years. She heard it every day, every morning, every night. She would recognize it even through a wall, even in a crowded room. "Why are you worried?" Marcus continued, clearly talking to someone right next to him. "The loan is done. The money's already on the card under her name, naturally. My credit is trash after that car incident, remember? But Layla's is spotless, clean as a whistle. The bank didn't even really check the documents just for show. They called once, confirmed the details, and that was it. The money was transferred." A cold chill spread through Layla's body. Her fingers went numb, and she caught her breath. She slowly sank onto the small stool in the corner of the fitting room, staring blankly at the curtain that separated her from her husband's voice. A loan in her name? What is he talking about? What loan? Come on. Marcus laughed, and his laughter had such a careless, confident sound that Layla felt sick. "The signature? I told you it's all covered. She won't even find out. You know how she is. She never looks at paperwork. She trusts me with everything. I just slipped her a few documents to sign. Told her they were some forms for my job, so she signed them without even looking at them. The bank doesn't care as long as the signature is there and the ID matches." A woman's voice responded softly, indistinctly. Layla couldn't make out the words, but the tone was flirty, playful, a young voice, not hers. "Don't worry, sweetheart," Marcus continued. Layla heard the rustling of clothes as he moved around. "We'll be in Cancun in 2 weeks. Imagine that. 5-star all-inclusive. I already picked out the package. I just have to pay for it. And Layla will think I'm on a business trip. She's used to it. I tell her I'm traveling every month. Last month I said I was gone for a week and we were at the resort. Remember?" He laughed again, the satisfied, carefree laugh of a man who was sure that everything was going according to plan, that no one would ever catch him, that he was smarter than everyone else. Layla sat there motionless. Her mind was blank. Not even thoughts, just the kind of white noise like static on an old television. A loan in her name without her knowing it. A forged signature. A mistress, Cancun. The Atlanta trips that never happened, the Miami conferences, she knew nothing about any of it. She remembered how Marcus had indeed left for a week a month ago. He'd told her they had an important meeting, that his boss needed him to be there in person. She had even walked him to the door with his bag, kissed him goodbye and said, "Be safe on the road." And he was heading to the beach with this woman. "How much did you end up getting anyway?" The woman asked louder this time. Layla heard her voice clearly. Young sharp. She was definitely under 30. $45,000, Marcus replied. For 3 years. The payments are small, only $1,500 a month. Layla won't even notice. I'll just take her debit card and transfer the money to the bank. I'll tell her it's for utilities or something else. She never checks. Layla closed her eyes. The sum was spinning around in her head. Unbelievable. A loan she hadn't taken out. A debt she didn't know about. But what if she finds out? The woman's voice sounded worried. What if the bank calls her or she gets a text? She won't, Marcus said confidently. I gave them my cell number when I signed the papers so all the notifications come to me. And she doesn't go to the bank herself. I told you like 3 years ago. I told her I'd handle all the bills so she wouldn't have to worry about anything. Taking care of her, right? She loves having such an attentive husband. And I quietly control everything. Her card, the accounts, all the finances. How much time had passed? Seconds, a minute? Layla didn't know. She just sat there staring at the floor, unable to move. Somewhere far away music was playing. Somewhere shoppers were bustling around. But here in this small dressing room her world was falling apart. Then something clicked inside her, sharp like a switch being flipped. And in place of the paralysis came icy clarity. A cold, sober thought. I have to record this. I have to document what he's saying or he'll deny everything, twist it around, lie his way out of it. Layla slowly pulled her phone out of her purse. Her hands were shaking, but she forced them to obey. She unlocked the screen and opened the voice recording app. A large red button was in the middle of the screen. She pressed it. The phone vibrated once. The recording had begun. Black screen with the seconds ticking by. A pulsating red circle. She placed the phone on her knees, screen up, and froze again, listening intently. Every word was now crucial. Well, that's great then, Marcus was saying. So we're all set. I'll stop by your place tonight. Layla's stuck at work until 9 o'clock. Something about inventory or an audit. I forget. We can relax, have some wine, watch a movie, and first thing tomorrow I'll go to the bank and transfer some of the money to my account, and it's a done deal. Some for the vacation, some for the dress and shoes you wanted. Remember? I remember. The woman laughed. You promised to buy them for me a month ago. Well, we'll buy them tomorrow. We'll buy them right now. We have plenty of cash now. Layla clenched her fists so tightly that her nails dug into her palms. Simple, naive. Her whole life had been nothing but work and home. She trusts him completely. Never checks. She remembered how 3 years ago, Marcus had offered to take over all their finances. He'd said he wanted to make her life easier, that she worked hard enough, and that it was no trouble for him. He was often near the bank anyway, and she had believed him. She was grateful. She thought he was caring, thought it was love, but he was simply setting the stage. Setting the stage to control her money, her credit, her life. But what if she suddenly asks about the money? The woman asked again. What if she sees something leaving the account? She won't notice, Marcus scoffed. I've told you 100 times. She doesn't keep track of any of it. She gets her paycheck, gives me the card, and I give her cash for small things. Everything else is mine. Well, technically ours, but she doesn't even wonder how much is in there or what's being spent. As long as there's enough for food and utilities, she doesn't care. Layla bit her lip. This was the truth. The ugly, humiliating truth. She really hadn't been paying attention. She had trusted him, handed over her card, accepted cash for groceries in transit, and never asked questions. She thought that's what was expected. That's what families did when the man was the head of the household. But in reality, she had just handed him control of her life. Fine, the woman said, drawing out the word. Just let's get everything done quickly. I'm tired of hiding in corners. I want to see you normally, without constantly looking over my shoulder. I know, baby. Just hold on a little longer. After the trip, I'll talk to her. Maybe even file for divorce. It depends on how it goes. If I can split the condo fairly so I get the bigger share, then I'm definitely leaving. You're serious? Hope sparked in the woman's voice. As serious as I can be, but it takes time. The condo is in both our names. Bought during the marriage. By law it's 50-50, but I think I can maneuver it so I get 2/3. I just need to find a smart lawyer and play my cards right. The recording continued. Layla sat watching the phone screen where the seconds ticked by. 30, 45, 1 minute, 1.5, 2 minutes, and 32 seconds. Every word was burned into her memory. Every phrase was a nail in the coffin of their marriage. She didn't cry. No tears would come. There was only a cold, hollow feeling inside. As if something important, something alive, had been ripped out by the roots. Okay, let's go, the woman said. I still need to look at that dress, the red one I saw in the window. Let's go. Let's go. I'll buy you a dress that will make everyone jealous, shoes to match, and a clutch. There's plenty of cash for everything. Don't you worry. The curtain of the adjacent fitting room rustled. Layla stopped the recording and saved the file. 2.5 minutes, more than 150 seconds of his own words. Proof. She slowly rose from the stool. Her legs felt like cotton, but she forced herself to stand. She took off the coat, hung it back up, put on her jacket, grabbed her purse, checked that the phone was in her pocket, took a deep breath, exhaled, and then pulled back her fitting room curtain and stepped out. Marcus stood a few feet away from her. Beside him was a fair-skinned woman, Tiana, in her late 20s, wearing a short black dress and high heels. Bright makeup, red lipstick, long manicured nails, gold hoop earrings. Beautiful, young, well-maintained. She was laughing at something, her head thrown back, and Marcus was looking at her with a smile Layla hadn't seen in a very long time. Layla took a step forward slowly, deliberately. Marcus turned at the sound of her footsteps and froze. The smile vanished from his face as if it had been wiped clean. His eyes widened, his mouth slightly open. He paled literally. His face turned waxy as if all the blood had been drained instantly. Tiana also fell silent, darting her eyes from Layla to Marcus and back again. Layla, he finally choked out. His voice was husky, unfamiliar. What? What are you doing here? Layla looked at him calmly, very calmly, a long examining look, as if seeing him for the very first time. Then she held up her phone, the screen still illuminated, showing the saved audio file with the timestamp. 2.5 minutes. I recorded it, she said quietly, almost a whisper. But in that silence the word rang out like a gunshot. Marcus froze. If he had been pale before, now he was ashen gray. His lips trembled. What? Recorded what? He mumbled, though the look on his face showed he understood perfectly well. Tiana took a step back, her eyes darting between them. Layla said nothing. She simply stood and stared at her husband, at the man she had lived with for 8 years, whom she had trusted, whom she had loved, and who had turned out to be someone she didn't know at all. Then she turned and walked toward the exit. She passed the sales associate who was asking her about the coat, if she liked it, if she was going to buy it. Layla didn't answer. She walked past the racks, past the displays, past the mirrors without looking back. Her steps were firm, her back was straight. Behind her she heard Marcus's voice, confused, frightened, almost pleading. Layla, wait, Layla, stop. Let's talk. It's not what you think. She didn't stop. Didn't turn around. She just walked forward through the store to the escalator down to the exit. The automatic doors slid open. The cold evening air hit her face. There was a knot in her throat, but she didn't allow herself to cry. Only when she was in the taxi and it pulled away did Layla allow herself to exhale. Her hands were still shaking. She looked at the phone in her hand. The audio file was there, saved, recorded. The proof that her life had just collapsed, and at the same time the proof that she now knew the truth. Layla entered the condo and locked the door with all the deadbolts. Her hands were still trembling as she kicked off her shoes and hung her jacket on the hook in the foyer. The condo was quiet, empty, cold. She had left that morning without turning up the heat. Now this silence felt alien, as if she hadn't come home, but into the set of her former life. She walked into the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and only then did she feel herself completely break. The knot in her throat swelled, her breathing became ragged. Tears streamed down her face, bitter, burning. Layla covered her face with her hands and wept, uninhibited, sobbing like a child. 8 years. 8 years of life with a man she turned out not to know at all. 8 years of trust, care, and shared plans. She remembered meeting him at a mutual friend's birthday party. Marcus had seemed reliable, calm, serious, not the type to speak without thinking. He courted her beautifully. Flowers, movies, evening strolls. A year later he proposed. 6 months after that, they had a modest but warm wedding with close friends and family. And now this, alone in her name without her knowing. A mistress, lies about business trips, plans for divorce and condo division, and his voice careless, mocking. She won't even know the difference. Layla wiped her tears with the back of her hand, stood up and went to the closet. She needed to pull herself together. She needed to think. Tears wouldn't solve anything. She opened the bottom drawer of the dresser where they kept important documents. She pulled out a folder marked important. Inside were their passports, their marriage certificate, the condo deed, and some old statements. Layla dumped everything onto the table and started sorting through it. Her passport, Marcus's passport, the marriage license, the condo purchase agreement. Where else could the papers be? She remembered that Marcus always stacked certain envelopes in the top drawer of his desk. She had never gone through his things before, believing that everyone should have their privacy. But this was no time for delicacy. Layla walked to the desk and opened the drawer. Inside were pens, notebooks, receipts, paper clips, and a sealed white envelope. She picked it up and turned it over. Nothing was written on the envelope. She tore it open and pulled out the sheets. A loan agreement. Her name, her ID details, the amount $45,000. Term 3 years. At the bottom a signature. Layla looked closely. The signature was similar to hers but not exactly right. The letters were slightly larger, the pressure stronger. He had forged it. She felt nauseous. She sank into a chair, holding the agreement. There it was, black and white, the proof. He really had taken out a loan in her name, forged her signature, and received the money. Layla picked up her phone, found the bank's number on their website, and called. Long rings, then an automated voice offering to press numbers to select a service. She pressed 0 to connect with an operator. Good evening, Fidelity Bank. My name is Denise. How may I help you? A pleasant female voice asked. Good evening. My name is Layla Vance. I want to check on a loan that may have been taken out in my name. I can check that for you. Please provide your social security number and date of birth. Layla dictated the information. A pause. The sound of keys clicking on the other end. Yes, there is indeed a consumer loan taken out in your name. The amount is $45,000. The date of issue was October 23, 3 days ago. 3 days ago. Layla closed her eyes. It was very recent. He hadn't even had time to spend all the money yet. Tell me, can I dispute this loan? The thing is, I didn't sign for it. The signature is not mine. I understand your situation. In that case, you need to come to a bank branch with your ID and file a fraud report. We will conduct a signature analysis. If it is confirmed that the signature is forged, the loan will be annulled and the case will be handed over to law enforcement. How quickly can this be done? We accept the report on any business day. The analysis usually takes between 5 and 10 business days. Come in first thing in the morning, ideally right when we open to avoid a wait. Okay. Thank you. You're very welcome. Call us if you have any questions. Layla hung up. First thing tomorrow, the bank. But that wasn't enough. She needed to go to the police too. She needed to document everything officially so he couldn't weasel out of it. She opened her phone's browser, typed in fraud report, police form sample, and quickly scanned the text. It was clear. She needed to describe the situation, attach evidence, and provide the relevant details. Tomorrow morning she would go to the bank first, then to the police precinct. It was nearly 8 o'clock. Marcus could be back any minute. Layla did not want to see him. Not now. Not while her emotions were raging inside, threatening to erupt. She stood up, went to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water, and drank it slowly, trying to calm down. Then she returned to the bedroom, pulled her gym bag from the closet and started packing. A couple of changes of clothes, jeans, a sweater, pajamas, her makeup bag, phone charger, documents, the loan agreement. She wouldn't spend the night here. She would go to her sister's place. Imani had always said, "If you ever need me, just show up." A lock clicked in the front door. Layla froze. Marcus, he had come home. She heard him taking off his shoes, hanging up his jacket. Then his footsteps headed toward the bedroom. The door opened. Marcus stood in the doorway, pale, bewildered, guilty. He looked at her, at the bag, at the documents scattered on the table. Layla, he began softly. Let's talk, please. She remained silent, just standing and looking at him. This man, who had been her husband just yesterday, had become a stranger today. I can explain everything, Marcus continued, taking a step forward. It's not what you think. I didn't want to betray you. Just happened. It just happened. Layla's voice was cold level. You took out a loan on me, forged my signature, lied about business trips, cheated, and planned to divorce me and sue for the condo, and that just happened? Marcus winced as if in pain. I wasn't planning on getting a divorce. I just said that to get her off my back. Look, that girl Tiana, she doesn't mean anything. It was just a fling, a distraction. But you are my wife, my family. $45,000 for a distraction? Layla took a step toward him. Do you seriously think I'm that stupid? No, of course not. I don't think you're stupid. I got lost. I had debts. You understand? Old debts from last year. I needed money urgently and my credit was shot. They wouldn't give me a loan. So, I thought if it was in your name I wanted to ask, but I was afraid you wouldn't understand, that you would refuse. Of course I would have refused. Layla's voice broke into a shout. Because that's fraud. Because it's my credit history, my name, my money that I'll have to pay back. And you didn't even bother to ask me. Marcus hung his head. I'm sorry. I know I was wrong, but I'll pay it all back. I promise I'll make the payments myself. You won't even notice them. Shut up. Layla felt a churning inside. A wave of pure fury rising. Just shut up. I recorded your conversation, the whole thing from start to finish. You said I wouldn't understand, that I was simple and gullible. You were laughing at me with your mistress. You were planning a trip to Cancun with my money. He looked up, his eyes filled with terror. Layla, please don't do anything crazy. Let's resolve this between ourselves without involving outsiders. Outsiders? Do you mean the police? Why jump to that right away? We're a family. We can work this out. No, Marcus, we can't. I'm going to the bank and the police tomorrow. I'm filing a fraud report, and I'm filing for divorce too. He went even paler. Layla, don't wait. Let's discuss this. I'll change. I swear. No more mistakes, no more girls, nothing. Just you and me like before. She shook her head. It won't be like before. You destroyed everything with your own two hands. Marcus took another step, reaching out as if to touch her shoulder. But Layla recoiled. Don't touch me, she said quietly. I'm packing my things and leaving for a few days. I need to think. Where are you going? None of your business. She zipped up the bag, slung it over her shoulder, and grabbed her phone and documents. Marcus stood helpless and bewildered in the middle of the room. Layla, please. His voice cracked. Don't leave like this. Let's at least talk calmly tomorrow morning. She stopped at the door and looked back. Tomorrow morning I'll be at the bank and then the police station. If you want to talk, you can talk to the detective. And she walked out. It was dark and cold outside. Layla pulled out her phone and dialed her sister's number. Imani answered on the third ring. Hey girl, what's up? Imani, can I come over to stay the night? Of course. What's wrong? You sound off. I'll tell you later. I'm heading out now. All right. I'll be waiting. Do you have your key? Yes. Then hurry on over. I'll put the kettle on. Layla hailed a taxi, climbed into the back seat, and closed her eyes. Her whole body ached from fatigue and tension. But the worst was the emptiness inside. As if something had been burned to ashes, leaving only cinders. Imani lived on the other side of the city in an older apartment complex. Layla went up to the 6th floor and rang the bell. Imani opened the door immediately, tall, light-skinned, in a housecoat and fuzzy slippers. Come in. Come in. She moved aside, letting Layla into the apartment. Lord, you look pale. What happened? Layla walked into the living room, collapsed onto the sofa, and only then realized she couldn't hold it in anymore. The words poured out about the mall, the fitting room, the recording, the loan, the mistress, everything. Imani listened without interruption, her face growing harder and harder. Oh, Layla, she breathed out when Layla finished. I always felt something was off with him, but I thought it was just my intuition acting up. And now I find out I lived with a fraud for 8 years. Layla gave a bitter chuckle. 8 years of trusting, giving him my paycheck, never checking where the money went, believing every single word, and he? Imani sat closer and put her arm around her sister's shoulders. Listen, tomorrow morning we're going to the bank together, then the police. I'm with you. Don't worry. That scumbag is going to pay for everything. I'm scared, Layla confessed quietly. Scared I won't be able to handle it, that he'll twist it, lie or blame me. He won't get away with it. You have the recording. You have the loan agreement with the forged signature. The analysis will confirm it. He's finished, girl. And you were smart not to panic. You recorded everything. Layla nodded. Imani was right. She had the evidence. She just needed to act. They stayed up talking until midnight. Imani made tea, brought out cookies, calming and encouraging her sister, and Layla told her everything that had accumulated over the years, how Marcus had gradually withdrawn, how he'd grown cold, how he'd stopped caring about her life, how she'd blamed it on stress, on work, on circumstances, how she'd ignored the small things, the scent of strange perfume, the calls he hung up on when she was around, the frequent late nights. I knew, but I didn't want to admit it, Layla said, staring into her cup of cold tea. I thought if I didn't pay attention, everything would fix itself. That's not how it works, Imani gently replied. If there's a problem, you have to face it, not pretend everything is fine. I know that now. Layla woke up early the next morning, though she'd slept poorly, tossing and turning, waking up and falling back into a troubled sleep. Imani was already in the kitchen making breakfast. Morning. Sleep okay? So. It's all right though. Today's going to be a hard day, but we'll get through it. I already called work and told them I'd be late. We're heading to the bank right when they open. Layla nodded. They ate quickly, cheese sandwiches and coffee. Then they got dressed and left. The bank opened at 9 o'clock. They arrived 10 minutes early and managed to be the first in line. When the doors opened, Layla approached the administrator and explained the situation. The woman listened carefully, nodded, and led them to a private office. Have a seat. A specialist from our fraud operations team will be with you shortly. 5 minutes later, a man in his 40s entered, wearing a sharp suit and carrying a folder of documents. Hello, my name is Mr. Howard. I'm the senior specialist for the security department. Please explain the situation. Layla told him everything concisely and factually, showed him the agreement and played the voice recording. Mr. Howard listened without interrupting, taking notes. Understood, he said when Layla finished. This is indeed a serious situation. We will perform a signature analysis. You'll need to provide several samples of your handwriting on different sheets of paper. Also, please fill out a statement confirming the loan was taken without your consent. If the analysis confirms forgery, the loan will be annulled, and we will forward the case to the police. How long will this take? The analysis is 5 to 7 business days. We will contact you immediately once we have the results. Layla wrote the statement and signed her name several times on blank sheets for the analysis. Mr. Howard neatly organized everything into the folder. We will be in touch. Don't worry. If the signature is truly forged, and I'm confident it is, the loan will be annulled. Thank you. They left the bank. Layla felt that the first step had been taken. Now for the police. The precinct was a 10-minute drive away. They arrived, passed through the security checkpoint, and went up to the second floor. The desk officer directed them to a detective's office. The detective, a man in his 50s with a tired face, listened to Layla, reviewed the documents, and listened to the recording. Clear, he said. This falls under felony fraud and forgery of documents. File a report. We'll register it and open a case. Your husband will be called in for questioning. If guilt is confirmed, he faces probation or jail time, depending on the circumstances. Layla wrote the report detailed as Imani had instructed, who, what, when, where. She attached a copy of the agreement and provided the audio file. We will issue a warrant to open the criminal case within 3 days, the detective said. You will be called in as the victim for testimony, and your husband as the suspect. All right. When they left the precinct, Layla felt a strange sense of relief. Everything was official. Everything was documented. Now it wasn't just her word against his. Now it was the law. You did good, Imani said, hugging her sister. You're doing everything right. Thanks for being with me always. That evening, as Layla lay on Imani's sofa, Marcus called. She didn't answer. He called back, and again she blocked his number. An hour later, a text came from an unfamiliar number. Layla, it's me. Please let's meet. Let's talk normally. I understand I was wrong. I'm ready to pay everything back, to fix everything. Just don't ruin our family. Layla looked at the screen, then deleted the message and blocked that number too. Family? What family? He ruined it himself with his own hands, with his lies, with his betrayal. Now she only had to move forward. A week passed. A week that felt like an eternity for Layla. She went to work, trying to focus on her tasks, but her mind constantly returned to what had happened. Colleagues noticed she was distracted, pale and quiet. Her boss, Ms. Lee, stopped by her desk a few times to ask if everything was all right. Layla answered briefly, yes, just tired, and submerged herself in paperwork again. She continued to live with Imani. She didn't want to go back to the condo. Even the thought of having to see Marcus made her sick. Imani didn't mind. On the contrary, she said she was happy for the company. In the evenings they sat in the kitchen, drank tea and talked. Imani talked about her job at the travel agency, the annoying clients and new tour packages. Layla listened distractedly, grateful not to be silent and alone. On Wednesday the bank called. Mr. Howard informed her that the analysis was complete. Ms. Vance, we have the results. The signature on the loan agreement is indeed forged. The handwriting expert confirmed it's not yours. The loan has been annulled, and all accrued interest has been waived. You will not be required to repay the funds. Layla exhaled, feeling an enormous weight lift from her shoulders. Thank you. Thank you so much. We have forwarded all materials to the police. They will be in touch with you shortly. And sure enough, on Thursday evening the detective called. He introduced himself as Detective Johnson and asked her to come in for testimony the next morning. Layla agreed. On Friday morning, she took a couple of hours off work and drove to the precinct. The detective met her in a small office with bare walls, a metal desk and 2 chairs. He was a young man in his 30s with attentive eyes and a serious expression. Please sit down, Miss Vance. Tell me everything in sequence. Layla spoke for a long time. The detective asked questions, clarified details and took notes. Then he played the recording she had brought, listening carefully. Understood, he said when the recording ended. The picture is clear. Your husband committed fraud, took out a loan in your name without your knowledge, and forged your signature. That is a serious felony offense, plus forgery. We will call him in for questioning. A summons will be issued today. What kind of sentence is he facing? If he pleads guilty and agrees to a victim-offender reconciliation, probation is possible along with an order to pay you restitution for emotional damages. If not, actual jail time up to 3 years. But given that this is a first offense and the victim is his spouse, it's likely to end in probation. Layla nodded. She didn't want Marcus to go to jail. She wasn't vindictive. She just wanted justice and for him to be held accountable for what he had done. I want to file for divorce, she said. Where should I go? The county clerk's office, if he agrees to the divorce and there are no property disputes. If there are disputes, you'll need a lawyer to go to court. But it's faster to try and settle amicably first. After leaving the precinct, Layla immediately went to the county clerk's office. She was given the divorce petition form. She filled it out, sitting right at a table in the hallway, carefully writing the letters. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Reason: irreconcilable differences. Short, dry, no emotion. If the other spouse agrees, he must also file his own petition. The clerk, an older woman in glasses, explained. Then in about 30 days, you will receive your final decree. If he disagrees, you go to court, which takes longer. I'll try to reach an agreement with him, Layla replied, though she wasn't sure Marcus would simply agree. That evening she decided to text him. She unblocked his number and typed the message. Marcus, we need to talk tomorrow at 3 o'clock at the cafe near the park. Come alone. A reply came a few minutes later. Okay, I'll be there. The next day, Layla arrived at the cafe 15 minutes before the scheduled time. She ordered tea and sat at a window table. Her nerves were shot. Her hands were shaking. She hadn't seen Marcus in over a week, and didn't know how she would react to meeting him. He showed up right at 3 o'clock. He walked into the cafe, looked around, saw her, and headed toward the table. He looked rough, a drawn face, dark circles under his eyes, a wrinkled shirt. He sat across from her without saying a word. "Hi," Layla began. "Hi," he replied hoarsely. They were silent for a few seconds. Then Marcus spoke first. "I was called in for questioning. The detective said a criminal case has been opened against me. Fraud and forgery of documents. Layla, I didn't want it to come to this. Truly, I just got lost, got into debt, and didn't know how to get out. I thought I could pay the money back quickly, that you wouldn't find out. But I did find out. Yes. And I understand that you're angry. You have every right to be. But I'm begging you. Let's try to fix this. I'm ready to pay you restitution. I'm ready to pay off the debts. I'm ready to do anything. Just don't ruin our family." Layla looked at him with a steady gaze. In his eyes there was pleading desperation. But the man she knew was no longer there. Or maybe he never had been. "Marcus, the family is gone," she said calmly. "You destroyed it yourself. I filed for divorce. I want you to file your petition too, so this can be over quickly and without court." He paled. "You're serious?" "Absolutely. But Layla, can't you forgive me? Everyone makes mistakes. I'll change. I swear." "You didn't make a mistake, Marcus. You lied to me for months, took out a loan in my name, cheated on me, and planned to sue for the condo. That's not a mistake. That's betrayal." He lowered his head, clenching his fists. "What about the condo? How do we split it?" "By law, 50-50. You can buy out my share, or I can buy out yours, or we can sell it and split the money. It makes no difference to me." "I can't buy out your share. I don't have the money." "Then we'll sell it." Marcus nodded without looking up. "Fine. I'll file the divorce petition." "When?" "Tomorrow. They'll give you the form at the clerk's office." He stood up, didn't say goodbye, and walked out of the cafe. Layla remained seated, looking out the window. It was raining outside. People hurried past with umbrellas. Cars drove through puddles, splashing water. Life continued. 3 days later, Marcus was called in by the detective again. Detective Johnson offered him the chance to plead guilty and enter into a victim-offender reconciliation agreement with Layla. Marcus agreed. He signed all the documents, admitting that he took out the loan without his wife's knowledge, forged her signature, and agreed to pay Layla $10,000 in restitution. The detective issued a dismissal of the criminal case due to the reconciliation of the parties, but sentenced Marcus to 2 years of probation. This meant that if he committed another crime within those 2 years, he would go to jail. Layla learned about this from the detective's call. "Your husband pleaded guilty and agreed to reconciliation. The case is dismissed, but he received probation and is obligated to pay you $10,000. The funds must be transferred within 3 months." "Thank you," Layla said. She felt no triumph, no malice, only exhaustion and relief that this nightmare was finally ending. On Monday, Marcus filed his petition for divorce. A month later, they received their final decree. Layla went to the county clerk's office alone, received the document, and walked out into the street. The weather was clear. The sun broke through the clouds. She looked at the decree, seal, signature, the official end of an 8-year marriage. That evening, her friends Shayla and Nicole, whom she'd known since college, invited her out. They met at a small restaurant downtown, ordered wine and appetizers. "To your freedom," Shayla, red-haired, cheerful and always supportive, raised her glass. "To a new life and to never getting involved with jerks like that again," added Nicole, serious and direct. Layla smiled. "For the first time in a long time," she smiled genuinely. "Thank you, girls. I couldn't have gotten through this without you." "Please, you're a rock," Shayla said. "Not everyone could have pulled themselves together that fast. I probably would have cried for a week." I cried, Isla admitted. Just not in front of everyone. They talked late into the night, discussing the past and making plans for the future. Shayla suggested they all go to the Caribbean that summer. Nicole advised her to sign up for yoga or a gym membership. You need a change of pace, she said. Get into something new, a hobby, sports, some classes. The main thing is not to dwell on the past. Isla nodded. She knew her friends were right. She had to move on. She had to build a new life without Marcus, without the heavy burden that had weighed her down all those years. The condo issue was resolved surprisingly fast. They found a buyer through a real estate agent and closed the deal. Isla received her half, $130,000. This was enough to rent a small one-bedroom apartment on the edge of the city with some left over for the first few months. The move was quick. Imani helped her gather her things and pack boxes. They went to the old condo on a Saturday morning when Marcus wasn't home. Isla only took her clothes, books, a few photos, and the dishes she had bought herself years ago. She left everything else. She didn't want anything that reminded her of the past. The new apartment was small but cozy. The windows faced the courtyard where old oak trees grew and a children's swing set stood. Isla arranged her things, hung curtains, and placed a pot of African violets, a gift from Imani, on the windowsill. Well, Imani said, looking around the room. Now this is your home. Yours and only yours. Isla hugged her sister. Thank you for everything. Don't mention it. We're family. That evening after Imani left, Isla was alone. She sat on the sofa, pulled a throw over herself and just sat staring out the window. It was getting dark outside. Lights came on in the windows of the neighboring buildings. Somewhere children were playing. A dog barked. A car drove by. Quiet, peaceful. No one was lying, cheating, or betraying. She pulled out her phone, opened her notes and wrote a list of things she wanted to do. 1. Sign up for Spanish classes. 2. Go to the ocean. 3. Find a new hobby. 4. Learn to trust myself. Then she put the phone down and closed her eyes. An entire life lay ahead of her. New, unknown, frightening, and at the same time exciting. A life in which she made her own decisions, was responsible for her own actions, and built her own happiness. And that was beautiful. 3 months passed since the divorce. Isla gradually got used to her new life, though it wasn't easy at first. In the morning, she woke up in her small apartment, brewed coffee in her tiny kitchen, looked out the window at the courtyard with the oak trees, and was surprised every time by the quiet. No shouting, no tension, no anxious waiting for her husband to come home and what lie he would tell this time. Work still took up most of her day. Isla tried to bury herself in her tasks. It helped her avoid thinking about the past. Her colleagues noticed the change. Ms. Lee once stopped by her during lunch and sat opposite her. Isla, you've changed, she said thoughtfully. You seem calmer, more confident somehow. I don't know how else to put it. Isla smiled. Maybe I have changed. A lot has happened lately. I'm happy for you. Keep up the good work. Marcus transferred the first payment of the restitution, $3,000. Isla received the transfer notification and felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, just a statement of fact. The money had arrived. His mistress, Tiana, disappeared right after everything came out. Imani once mentioned seeing Marcus alone at the mall, looking disheveled with a dull look in his eyes. Isla didn't ask for details. She didn't care. In early November, Isla signed up for Spanish classes. She had always wanted to learn, but Marcus had discouraged her, saying it was a waste of time, that she wouldn't need it, that she should just stay home and rest. Now no one was discouraging her. The classes met 3 times a week in the evenings at a small learning center near her home. The group was small, 8 adults, all with different goals. Some were learning for work, some for travel, and some just for themselves. The instructor was an energetic woman in her mid-40s with a short haircut and lively eyes. She didn't just teach grammar. She talked about culture, countries, and people. The lessons were easy and stress-free. Isla quickly immersed herself, doing homework in the evenings, listening to Spanish podcasts on her commute, and watching films with subtitles. The language came relatively easily. She still had her high school foundation. She just needed to refresh it and add practice. One day after class, one of the students approached her, and then a man in his 40s, tall and wearing glasses, with a genuinely pleasant and calm face, approached as well. "Excuse me," he began. "May I ask you something? Do you happen to work in accounting?" Layla was a bit surprised. "I do. Why? I thought I recognized you. Maybe I saw you at your office on business. I'm Julian Hayes." He extended his hand for a handshake. "Layla Vance." She shook his hand. "What were you in for?" "A cooperation agreement. I work for a construction company. We finalized the documents with your team." Layla's memory clicked. Indeed, about 3 months ago, a representative from a construction firm had come in. Pleasant, polite, got straight to the point, resolved everything. "Yes, I remember. Nice to meet you again." They started talking casually, and it turned out Julian had also recently gone through a divorce about a year prior. He was also learning Spanish because he had plans to travel extensively. He dreamed of seeing Europe, the US West Coast, and Asia. He had spent his entire life working hard, building his career, and now he decided it was time to live for himself and enjoy life more fully. "I understand," Layla said. "I'm just starting to live for myself too." They left the learning center together. It was drizzling lightly outside, and the air had a definite chill. Julian opened his umbrella. "I can walk you to your bus stop if you'd like." "Thank you." They walked under one umbrella, talking about the Spanish class, their plans for the future, and life in general. It felt incredibly easy and comfortable. Layla felt she could talk to this man without any pressure, without having to carefully choose her words. At the bus stop, they said goodbye. Julian smiled warmly. "Maybe we could grab coffee sometime after class just to talk, no strings attached." Layla thought for a second, then nodded. "Why not?" They started meeting after class. Not every single time, but regularly. They went to a cafe to sit and talk, and sometimes they just walked through the city at night, enjoying the atmosphere. Julian talked about his work, how he built houses, how he dreamed of creating something truly meaningful, and how his marriage had ended quietly without any drama or scandal. They simply realized they were no longer right for each other, and that they wanted different things. "My wife and I were together for 15 years, he said thoughtfully. "They were good years, honestly, but at some point we realized we had become strangers. We divorced amicably and remained on good terms. No kids were involved, so there was no trauma for anyone." Layla listened and realized that sometimes things happen that way too. Divorce wasn't always full of drama, betrayal, and scandal. Sometimes people just went their separate ways, acknowledging that their paths had simply diverged. Julian wasn't rushing her at all. He didn't pry with intrusive questions or try to get too close too fast. He was simply there, calm, reliable, and respectful. Layla felt safe and at ease with him. One frosty, clear evening in late November, they were walking along the riverbank. The surface of the river was covered in a thin sheet of ice, reflecting the bright street lights. Julian stopped and looked directly at her. "Layla, I know you're being cautious, and I'm definitely not rushing anything. But I want you to know that I genuinely enjoy spending time with you very much. You are a truly interesting person, and I would like to get to know you better if you're open to it, of course." Layla looked at his honest, open face and suddenly realized that she wanted that too. She wanted to try to trust again, to open up to someone again, slowly, carefully, and step by step. "I'm open to it," she replied. "Just let's take it slow. I need time." Julian smiled reassuringly. "As much time as you need. We have all the time in the world." December brought the first snow of the season. Layla renovated her apartment, painting the walls a light, warm beige, changing the curtains, and buying a comfortable new sofa. The apartment was completely transformed. It was now truly hers, reflecting her personality and taste. For New Year's Eve, she went to Amani's. They celebrated together, just the two of them, with her sister's delicious sweet potato pie, sparkling cider, and old classic holiday movies playing on TV. It was warm, cozy, and familial. "So ready to take stock of the year?" Amani asked when the clock struck midnight, ringing in the new year. It was a terrible year, to be honest, Isla admitted. But I'm glad it happened. I learned a lot about myself. She added, like never to hand your life over to someone else. That love isn't sacrifice but a true partnership. And that sometimes you have to be selfish to save yourself. Amani raised her glass in a toast. To you, to your strength, to your future. To us, Isla corrected gently. They clinked glasses, celebrating their friendship and the new year. In January, Marcus transferred the second portion of the restitution. Isla deposited the money directly into her savings account and decided to save up for a trip. Shayla suggested they go to the Caribbean that summer to enjoy the sun, the sea, and tropical drinks. Isla readily agreed. Why not? The Spanish classes were nearing their end. The instructor gave everyone certificates for successfully completing the foundational level and strongly advised them to keep practicing their Spanish. You all did great, she said encouragingly during the last class. The main thing is not to quit now. You need to practice a language constantly, or you'll forget everything you've learned. Isla promised herself she wouldn't quit and immediately signed up for the next level, which was scheduled to start in March. She and Julian continued to see each other, but now they were spending time together much more frequently. They went to the movies, the theater, and various museums. He even introduced her to classical music, taking her to the Philharmonic. Isla was discovering entirely new worlds she hadn't even considered before. One day in February, they were sitting in his car after a concert. Large, fluffy snowflakes were falling gently outside, covering the entire city in a pristine white blanket. Julian turned to her, his expression sincere. Isla, I know you're still being careful, and I'm truly not trying to pressure you in any way, but I want you to know that I'm very happy with you. Very happy. And I'm ready to wait as long as it takes for you to be comfortable. Isla took his hand in hers, her eyes meeting his. I'm happy with you too, Julian, and I'm ready to try. Slowly but definitely try. He smiled, leaned in closer, and kissed her tenderly, gently, and respectfully. Isla returned the kiss and realized that she had finally and completely let go of the past. Spring arrived unexpectedly early that year. In March, the snow melted quickly, and the first small patches of green grass appeared. The air smelled freshly of thawed earth, a welcome scent after the long winter. Isla started going to the gym regularly. Nicole had convinced her to try fitness classes, and now they were sweating together on the treadmills 3 times a week. Marcus transferred the final portion of the restitution, the full $10,000. Isla received the notification on her phone and exhaled deeply, a sense of relief washing over her. That whole issue was finally closed forever. She never regretted her decision to leave, and she never remembered Marcus with longing or regret. Only sometimes, very rarely, she thought of those 8 years as an important life lesson, a lesson that you must never lose yourself completely in a relationship. That love is not about sacrifice, but about partnership and mutual respect, and that trust must be mutual, never blind. In April, Julian suggested they take a weekend trip to a neighboring city. An exciting exhibition of contemporary art was opening there, and he thought she might enjoy it. Isla agreed enthusiastically. They drove in his comfortable car, stayed at a small, charming boutique hotel, walked on unfamiliar streets, looked at thought-provoking paintings, and debated the meaning of abstract art. That evening, they sat at a quiet restaurant on the waterfront. Julian ordered a bottle of wine, and they silently watched the breathtaking sunset over the water. You know, Isla began, breaking the comfortable silence. A year ago, I wouldn't have believed I'd be here right now, that I would be genuinely happy, that I would ever be able to trust anyone again. And now I understand that life truly does go on. That after every ending, there is always a new beginning waiting. Julian reached across the table and took her hand in his. I'm so glad we met. Me too, she replied, squeezing his hand gently. They returned to the city late Sunday evening. Julian walked Isla to her door and kissed her goodnight sweetly. I'll see you this week. Definitely, she confirmed with a smile. Isla walked into the apartment, quickly undressed, made herself a cup of soothing tea, and sat by the window, looking out at the city. The spring evening darkened outside, the sky turning a deep shade of indigo. Somewhere in the distance, cats were crying, and cars were rushing by on the streets. The ordinary life of an ordinary city continued around her. But for Layla, it was a completely new life full of possibilities. A life she was building herself with her own hands, with her own decisions. A life without lies, betrayal, or fear holding her back. Only her choices, and her newfound freedom. She pulled out her phone, opened her notes app, and added a new item to her list. 5. Learn to be happy. Then she smiled softly and put the phone down, feeling a sense of peace and contentment wash over her.